Hey, what's up? And welcome to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. We're here today with 2/3 of Blue Turnip. I am the fat one, Kyle.
And I'm the cool one, obviously, Brian.
Obviously, I mean, you can just, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see, obviously.
Yeah.
Our third member, Andy, is not going to be joining us on these podcasts, but he's still great as well. He's the cute one, in case you're interested.
Yeah.
But Brian and I just started on this journey of wanting to come up with our top 5 albums from every given calendar year from 2000 all the way up through 2020. And we just spent a lot of time on it and talked about it with each other a lot and thought it'd be cool to make a little podcast to clue you guys in on what the best music from these years is.
That's right. Yeah, we love making lists and our dreams are coming true. So
our wildest dreams are coming true.
Yeah.
So if you're tuning in and you're like, Blue Turnip, what the heck is that? Blue Turnip is a rock band. Me and Brian are 2 of the 3. We all play a whole bunch of different instruments, but I guess if you're going to shoehorn us into one instrument, I'm kind of the keyboardist and Brian's kind of the drummer. We've played live around the state of North Carolina. We've got an EP that's available anywhere music is found called Songs from the Cellar. We hope to record more very, very soon. We sort of have some plans and some songs in the works. And hopefully, if COVID-19 restrictions lift anytime this year, we might be able to start playing live again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It's been a long time for everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know we had a couple lined up, like right when it had started too. So that was kind of a bummer that we need to play those, but maybe we can get them back lined up again.
Yeah, man.
All right, but enough of the sad stuff. So, so further proof that like, why should you even listen to this? Why would you care about these 2 white guys' top 5 music? So my background a little bit. I've got a bachelor's degree in music. I studied classical piano, composition, music theory, love songwriting, love composing, and just a huge music fan, all sorts of genres all over the place, avid listener. So that's sort of the background I'm coming from. Brian?
Yeah, same deal, man. Grew up listening to the Beatles thanks to our dad. Kind of just like expanded from there. We'll talk about it soon, but like 2000s when we really started getting into stuff. The classic emo phase into the high school phase where I started really finding my own. But I've been playing drums forever, self-taught. Taught myself how to play a little guitar, a little piano. Just love music, love going to live shows. And I guess I'm qualified for this because I was a radio DJ for a while. So yeah, I did some DJing in college for an alternative rock station, which is a lot of stuff I like to listen to. And then I did some DJing for a country station, which was terrible. So I quit.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, you in college you were a runner-up for a Bonnaroo DJ competition.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, that was cool. I won free tickets to Bonnaroo, which is like $800 worth of stuff, like 2 tickets just from doing like it was like a SoundCloud competition or something like that. So yeah.
There you go, man. So
thanks for the memories.
Yeah, if you weren't convinced to listen to us when we started, hopefully you're convinced to listen to us by now.
Yeah.
So let's pause to talk about the year we're talking about a little bit. So we said we're starting at 2000 and working our way towards the present. So this is our first episode, focuses on the year 2000. It's not quite the Jonas Brothers year 3000. The year 2000.
1000. They have been to the year 2000.
Yeah,
it was a good one.
It was a good one. Yeah. Do you have any memories that stick out in your mind about that early 2000s period, or?
Early, like I was pretty young, dude. I was like 7, like 6 or 7 years old. I don't know. But we grew up in a Christian family, so we listened to a lot of Christian rock. So that was kind of like, that's kind of what we jammed to like back then. And then you hit like the grade school, middle school influence where people start showing you like Green Day and like hip hop and stuff like that, kind of the rebellious phase, So we got a pretty good mix of stuff that we listened to then. So a lot of good memories between like parental influence and like going to public school for the first time influence. So it's interesting.
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind when you mentioned that. I remember when we were kids, like kind of the thing that got us like big time into Christian music was one of our older friends burned us a CD. It had Supertones, Audio Adrenaline, DC Talk, a couple other bands I can't remember, and we had like never heard any of that before. We're like, holy smokes, this is the greatest.
Earthsuit.
There you go.
Earthsuit?
Yeah.
Like some pretty far out stuff. Yeah. So if you haven't heard of Earthsuit, they're pretty sweet.
It's funny you mentioned middle school because I was young as well. 2000, I think I was 9. But you mentioned middle school, and kind of like so many of these albums when we were creating these lists were things that I didn't find until years afterwards. Sometimes it's just really tough to find music as it's coming out. So
right.
Some of these albums on this list, maybe I wasn't listening to as much when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old, but now I go back to it and listen to it a lot.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's a great point. Exact same thing happened to me. My favorite, I don't want to spoil it, but my favorite band is on this list, and I didn't discover them until college.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Nice. Well, one thing we were both talking about too, listening especially to music from like 2000 through 2002, it's dated. You listen to a lot of that music. I know when I was going through and doing research for this, I listened to all the albums on the top 200 in the Billboard charts, and like 90s R&B was very much still alive and well, and that sort of post-grunge rock phase was super vibrant. And you go back and you listen to some of that stuff, and you're like, man, it just doesn't, like, even 20 years later, it's like, holy smokes, this is really, really dated.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, did you mention heavy rock just then? Or like hard rock?
Kind of post-grungy.
Yeah. So like it's changed a lot. Like it didn't age well. I wouldn't call it timeless stuff, but it brings back so many good memories though. Like I was just popped in my head, my 8th grade field trip to Washington, DC. Everybody got souvenirs, like DC souvenirs, and I got an Audio Slave CD and a Yankees hat.
I think that's like our personalities pretty well. It's like, go to DC and come back with a CD and a Yankees shirt.
Yeah. Good times.
See, it's so interesting too. You mentioned CDs, like in doing this research, like one of the other sources that I used a lot were the NPR's listeners picks that they do at the end of every year. And I'm still working through those. I think I just finished 2011, but they talk about the like top 25 CDs from 2000. And that's even so wild now, because I know you and I are still kind of big physical product guys when we can get it, but I mean, sometimes an artist that you like comes out with a CD and it costs twice as much as the MP3 download now, and it's pretty wild how things have changed.
Twice as good of quality. Going we're like old men, dude, but like CD quality is, if you listen to a CD and MP3 back to back, like I listened to Muse like that, something off the Second Law, like I listened to the MP3 and then the CD back to back, it's a huge quality difference because they like compress it and whatever. But yeah, that's why I like physical. Plus it's cool to have something in your hand, like the lyric books, the art. It's just cool stuff to collect. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Yeah, and there's not quite as much on this list for me, but I know in some years in the future, I definitely like some progressive rock and get some of that on there. And I have this in the other room over there, just like a tower of progressive rock CDs on this weird little windy CD case. And like you said, just being able to have the art and it's because it still feels like, and maybe this shows that we're kind of old souls at heart, but it still feels like that music belongs in some sort of physical place. It's weird when it just goes straight from the internet to your computer, or sometimes even not that much nowadays. If it just stays on the internet, you just listen to Spotify or YouTube or something like that.
Oh, I know. Actually, I just started collecting vinyl. recently, and we've got like, I live in Lenore, North Carolina, just like a nothing town, and we got a sweet local vinyl store, and I hit it off with the dude who owns the store, and like I buy stuff from him all the time. But like the bigger the thing gets, like from MP3 to CD to vinyl, the more expensive it gets.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
especially modern vinyl. Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, it's really cool to have it for
That's
sure.
cool. Well, let's transition into our first segment. We've got this year in Blue Turnip history.
Woo woo.
All right. So I could be wrong about this because, like we said, we were young, but Blue Turnip started young. We're a family outfit,
Yeah.
and I think 2000 is our debut. And listeners, you're going to be excited to hear this. I know, especially with how familiar I'm sure you are with our music. We played, as Brian said, we grew up in a Christian family. We played at a Christian school talent show.
Yep.
We had our instruments were essentially toys, if I remember correctly. Like,
Yeah.
I know my keyboard was not good.
Yeah, I had like a junior pro drum set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Andy played an acoustic guitar that was like truly acoustic, like no microphone, not plugged
Yeah.
into anything. And we played the theme from Rocky, the and people went nuts, if I remember. I think people freaking loved this.
Oh, dude, they worshipped us. They liked it so much. They asked us to play. We got a freaking encore at a talent show, and we didn't know how to play anything else,
Right.
so we just played it again.
Oh man, that's awesome! And at the end, I think we all like turned to each other and like synchronized. They're like, "Yo, Adrian,
Yeah,
we did
it.
Yeah. Which I'm pretty sure is not really a line from the movie exactly. I think it's a little bit off, but
Yeah, that's one of those lines that I think people just think it's that, but it's not.
That was a great talent show. I remember there was a couple really standout acts in there. I remember one of our friends did the Elvis song "Jailhouse Rock,"
mm-hmm.
and he like gelled his hair all up and
Yep.
had sort of like the old 50s rock and roll greaser style outfit, did the full blown dance and everything.
Yeah, that was great.
And we've been talking about a lot of Christian stuff. If you're listening and you grew up with Veggie Tales, you'll know how awesome those are, or terrible, depending on which one you're watching. But another one of our friends did. They like rolled out the old, like, you know, when you were in school and they had the TV on the cart. They like rolled out a TV on the cart, popped in a VeggieTales VHS, and pressed play. And he sang along with one of the VeggieTales songs. Oh, that was the greatest time. No wonder we got an encore, man. I mean, yeah. Compared to that, we were like platinum recording artists.
Yeah. Dude, and the funny thing to think back on is people loved us when we were little kids, and like the older and older we got, the more people started not liking us. They're like, oh, cool, cute little kids like playing the Rocky theme. We're like, here's an original like 5 years later, and everybody's like, whatever.
Oh, such is life, man.
We hit our prime early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a good ride, though. It's been a good ride.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
All right. Well, let's get into the music. Let's get into kind of what we're talking about here. So, first of all, I've got this is a segment that's just for me. Kyle's rapid fire honorable mentions. As I mentioned, I listened to a ton of music to get this. I used a bunch of different resources and just wanted to mention a few albums that I thought were really cool from this year that just didn't quite make the top 5. So real quick, these are not in any particular order. We've got the album Life Before Insanity by Government Mule. Government Mule is kind of like a southern rock blues kind of jam band, but they got a really cool sound and they mess around with some different time signatures and get a little bit psychedelic and jammy sometimes. So some really, really cool stuff on that album if you ever get a chance to give it a listen. I mentioned progressive rock earlier. We got a progressive rock album here, The Seventh House by the band IQ. one of my friends on Twitter actually is just a huge fan of this band, and he was posting about this album as like one of his top 10 favorites. And I listened to it, and it's pretty dang sweet. So if you're into progressive rock, especially like keyboard-driven progressive rock, The Seventh House by IQ, very cool one. Very, very different. Crossing Muddy Waters by John Hyatt. That is one. John Hyatt, he's a little bit more pigeonholed now into his kind of genre, his sort of country-ish, singer-songwriter-ish genre. But back in the day, he really used to experiment and branch out with some different genres and stuff. And Crossing Muddy Waters is pretty much a full-blown folk album. But he's so good at writing choruses and things that are really catchy and pull you in that it really, really stands out as kind of from like some of the other folk rock stuff that was out there from that time. And finally, this is one that I had never heard of before seeing this on a list from a local North Carolina radio station from 2000. The album Righteous Love by Joan Osborne. Very cool, very like Bonnie Raitt influence, Sheryl Crow influence, but I probably liked it better than either Bonnie Raitt or Sheryl Crow, if that's not sacrilegious to say that. So Righteous Love by Joan Osborne. Now there we go. That was my rapid fire honorable mentions.
I like it. Dude, I totally forgot about the John Hyatt one. I don't think I'd change my list. I was looking at it. I was like, oh. But yeah, that's a great one, dude. I think the title track on that one was the bop. Yeah,
it's a great. I remember our dad when he used to play the gigs at the restaurants and stuff with his friend Mike. They used to play that song, Crossing Muddy Waters.
Yeah, it's great.
So speaking of nostalgia and memories, a lot of good ones there.
Sweet, nice list.
All right, so here we are, the top 5 albums. Sorry, guys. You made it this far. You're still listening now. I don't think that'll turn you off. The top 5 albums from the year 2000 as told by the 2 coolest guys in the world, Kyle and Brian from Blue Turnip.
But don't forget, I'm the coolest.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm the fattest. So we're going to alternate back and forth. We're going to go from 5 up to 1. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more in depth about each of these and just have some fun. So my number 5 pick, I was actually kind of shocked that this was the one that ended up making my list, but I couldn't find anything that would dethrone it, is the album Invincible by the band Skillet. Hopefully that nobody will be offended if I say this, but I pretty much hate Skillet. That sort of like kind of fake hard rock sound that they really coined in like the mid 2000s, it really turns me off. But back in the older days, in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were like really experimental. They really messed around with some electronic styles and just some like kind of oddball stuff that's like almost not even pleasant to listen to sometimes. It's like really, really off the wall. But the thing that really stands out about this album, Invincible, to me, is how catchy the choruses are. I mean, you got all this like kind of bizarre, insane, like electronic production and these really like hyper distorted, overdriven guitars and tons of vocal effects and weird stuff going on. And then it gets to the choruses and they just stick in your head. They just don't go away. And when I was a kid, when I was younger, I was always looking for stuff that was different. It just stood out to me. And I still haven't really found anything that sounds like this particular album. I know this is one that you listen to a lot, Brian. Would you agree with that? Say that it's kind of unique? Or?
It's super unique, especially for the time. I feel like it was super innovative. Like, I know the opening track, Best Kept Secret, like insta hooked. It's so sick. Do you have like a favorite or like?
That song's right up there for me. I love the title track, Invincible. If I had to pick one favorite, The Fire Breathes is probably my number one favorite.
Is that the one with the guitar thing?
Yeah.
Like where it does the.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you haven't heard the song, check it out. It's The Fire Breathes by Skillet. And what Brian's talking about is this is really, really rare for any music. Like, it's very common for the last chorus of a song to modulate up a half step or up a whole step. and they do the opposite. They use this effect where they just drag the guitar down, and the whole chorus pulls down a step. And when you're listening to it, it just sounds like they turned the darkness meter way up. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But
it's so heavy. It's so sick. I just gotta get this out of the way. I got the sniffles.
Oh, sorry, man.
Apologies.
No, you're good. We didn't actually mention too. I know we're pausing the countdown right away, but Brian, you're having a baby in like 4 days. Well, not you, but your wife, Julia.
Yeah. So yeah, we're obviously super excited. We found out that she has to get induced. We're checking into the hospital Tuesday, and we should have a baby Wednesday or Thursday. So yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I was just talking about like what's the first song he's gonna hear. I said Back in Black by AC/DC.
You say The Fire Breathes by Skillet, right?
Yeah.
Back in Black's pretty good one.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know, think about it though. But yeah, it's crazy, man. We're pumped.
Good times, man.
Yeah, thanks for dropping that in.
Oh yeah, sure, man. The fans want to know.
Yeah,
they want to be in the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about you guys a lot. I know Julie is a wonderful person, and you guys should be great parents.
Thanks, man.
Be exciting to be part of that little guy's life.
Yeah, man. And coolest uncle.
Fattest uncle.
Yeah.
All right, man. What's your number 5 pick from 2000?
Okay, my number 5 pick is Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. And like I was talking to you about this like a week ago or something. I was like, Linkin Park sucks. I was like, but when you look back on it, they're freaking awesome. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't jam to this still, dude. Like, I don't know. I feel like they perfected like the rap rock thing. Like it was just like, and it was really cool to listen to when you were young because you felt like you were doing something wrong.
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah. But this album had so many like huge hits on it, which is weird because they wouldn't be hits like today, like we were talking about. Like the first song, Paper Cut, was a huge hit, and it's so sick and it's so heavy. And I was looking on my iTunes. I don't use iTunes anymore, but it was my most listened to song. Like when I did listen to iTunes by like over 100 listens. Wow. Like I listened to it all the time. But it had so many good jams on it. Like Crawling was huge. I think In the End was their biggest hit. But I don't know. That one just hits hard. I always loved it. Yeah. That was their debut too.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was, yeah. And I think it was their most successful one by far. But yeah, I dig it, man.
Nice. Any like deep track on there that you're a big fan of that might not be like one of those big monster ones you mentioned?
See, that's the thing. There's not like, I was listening through it whenever I was making this list. There's not that many deep tracks. Like I don't know if I just grew up listening to all of them, but like I know all of them.
Just a hit parade.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. I guess that's why I was the most successful. And then you're like, what do you do after this?
Yeah, I'll pause it. You mentioned something really interesting that I forgot to mention at the beginning about like what a big hit Paper Cut was, and really Linkin Park had lots of really big hits in the early 2000s, and I mean they did kind of throughout their career. But when I got my new car a couple years ago, you get that 6-month trial of Sirius XM or whatever, and I found myself listening to the 2000 station a lot because, you know, like it reminds you when you're a kid and growing up. And one thing that just stands out so much is the diversity of the music. Like back to back, you could hear Chameleonaire and Linkin Park and I don't know what were some of those, Britney Spears, like just like rapid fire over and over again. Like, and it's so not like that now. Like everything is so in its own bubble, where like if you listen to pop radio, you're going to hear pop music, and if you listen to indie radio, you're going to hear indie music.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just like that was just kind of where we grew up in like that really diverse. Even the hits were all over the place.
Yeah, another thing I like about Linkin Park, like you say rap rock, but they like scream. It's like screamo rap rock.
Yeah,
like you don't find that often. So they were definitely unique. and I think that's why they're so successful.
Yeah. I would agree. They're definitely in my top two rap rock groups from that era. I think POD for me personally would probably edge them out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, same deal though. Because yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Okay. So this is a special one. This is a special
Yeah.
one. So I know you're finished with your list pretty much. You've got from 2000 to 2020 pretty much done. I'm not quite there yet. I think I just finished 2011 yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
But we were looking at our list side by side, and I think of the 105 albums that we each picked, we only have about 11 in common. And
Crazy.
so it's rare for us to overlap. But what's even rarer is to have the same album in the same spot on the same year. So we got number 4. You and I both picked "Loud and Clear" by the Orange County Supertones.
So good.
Why don't you start off with this one? What draws you to "Loud and Clear"?
I don't know if it's like a nostalgia thing. Like that was what we were talking about, the guy who burned us the CDs. That was one of the CDs that he burnt us, and we listened to it constantly. And it's so good. It's ska technically, but it's a little heavier, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
And a little more like it's hip hop infused. But every song is a good song. Like I'm looking at the tracks. I don't know. It's my second favorite Supertones album overall. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either number 2 or number 3 for me as well on the Supertones list. And I totally agree with you. Like, especially when you compare it to other ska groups from that period, like it's way more refined. The Supertones, like their production value, in my opinion, is higher, and I think they also weren't afraid to be more diverse. Like you said, they get heavier sometimes, but they can also write a really pretty song, and they can also write a really catchy song. This one's a little more. This album is a little bit more rocking all the way through from top to bottom, but it has some mellower moments in there, like "Lift Me Up." Is a standout track that's a little mellower. The very last track, "Spend It With You." A little bit still rocking, but kind of a little bit slower jam. Yeah.
So since there's the same slot and the same spot, do you have like a favorite song on this album? Curious.
I really do, and partially I love it, and partially it's because of the personal tie I have to it. Track 5, "Return of the Revolution."
So tight.
My number 1 favorite, and it was my. We both played baseball in high school, and it was my my at-bat song my freshman year of high school. "Return of the Revolution." Starts off with that siren. Cool.
Yep.
And then the riff comes in with the fast rapping at the beginning. I like that a lot.
So good.
What about you, man?
I love "Jury Duty." Yeah. It's a good one.
It'll make me cry on the right day, man. Sometimes when I think about that chorus, that every single moment, whether sleeping or awake, and I'm like, oh man.
Oh, speaking of lyrics, we always joke that the funny thing about the Supertones is we always know the first line to every song. Like I don't know why, but when the first line comes in, you're always ready for it, and then you don't know the rest.
The rest of the first verse is kind of like bopping, and the chorus comes in.
Yeah. Kind of like in Wayne's World, where they doing Bohemian Rhapsody, and they don't know any of the words at the very end. Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like.
Yeah, so just to recap so far, and we are fully endorsing this music. So if you haven't listened to it, go out and listen to it. If you haven't listened to it in a long time, listen to it. And support these artists. You know, like we're saying, like buy this music, whether you're a physical copy person or not. Like always so important to purchase these, even from groups that are not really playing anymore, like the Supertones. They've been done for 7 or 8 years now. But you know, still helps those folks out to get that money.
Yeah.
Off the soapbox now, my friend. But yeah, we've got so the 3 albums we talked about so far. We got "Invincible" by Skillet was my number 5. "Hybrid Theory" by Linkin Park was your number 5. And we both had "Loud and Clear" by the Orange County Supertones.
And just before you keep going, we said it was rare to have the same like number 4 or just like the same in general. We listen to like completely different styles of music. So it might be cool for listeners to like, they'll have a lot of stuff to check out just because it's so out there, eclectic. We listen to a lot of different stuff between us.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have, we both have the church background, but I still lead worship at a church. Been doing that for a little over 5 years now. So my list tends to be, well, at least in the early years, because we've talked about how Christian music in this period from like 2000 to 2006 especially was like kind of a golden era of Christian music. But my list tend to be about half Christian or so, for at least from like 2000 to 2008 or 9 or so, and then get branches out more from there. But yeah, so if you're interested in that aspect as well, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we've got number 3. So my number 3 album is one that I had listened to a long time ago and forgotten about it. When I was doing my research, I was like, holy smokes, this album is awesome. I need to listen to this more. Is the album Outbound by Bela Fleck and the Flecktones.
Sick.
If you don't know Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, they're kind of like, well, the genre question is a funny question because they always hated being asked about the genre. So they just made up their own genre. They said, we're blue bop, and whatever that means. But it's essentially more or less bluegrass and jazz mushed together, with lots and lots of influence from rock music, from classical music. It can be really experimental, but it can be really, really beautiful and serene. Mostly instrumental music, but one thing that really stands out about this Bela Fleck and the Flecktone album is that there's a lot of vocals. Track 3 has A Moment So Close, kind of like almost like whisper rap, some stuff going on in there, and they've got some female vocals that don't always have words throughout the album, but John Anderson from Yes sings on this record. Adrian Belew plays some guitar and sings on this record. And the musicianship and the talent level of these guys is just through the roof, especially Bela Fleck. If you don't know him, in my opinion, he's probably the best banjo player ever. And the guy who plays bass in this group, Victor Wooten, in my opinion, also my favorite bass player that I've ever heard.
Yep.
And their instruments especially interplay with each other so well. Like Bela Fleck does such a good job with these arrangements, and it's not just like a jam band. Like it's so precise and everything plays with each other so well. And yeah, just awesome to listen to.
They're so good. Did you ever see them live? I can't remember.
I never saw the Flecktones live, but I'm trying to work to see all the guys that used to play with them. I've seen Bela Fleck and his wife Abigail Washburn.
That's right. Yeah.
And I've seen Victor Wooten. He played at my college. He did like a tutorial at the School of Music in UNC
That's
Wilmington.
Sick. Yeah.
And I saw he's not. I don't think he played on this album. I should know, but Chick Corea played with them a lot. And I got to see him twice live, and really sadly, he actually just died last month. He was a very innovative jazz pianist. And he didn't play with them all the time, but was very associated with them. John Cowan, singer and bass player that played with Sam Bush and some of those other guys. I've seen him live too. So I haven't seen all the Flecktones yet or seen them together, but I'm working on
it. Nice. I saw Victor Wooten in the front row. He played at Legends at App State, and it blew my mind, man. I was just like staring at his fingers the whole time. Like, how does he do this? Because he'll do stuff like he does tricks, like bass tricks. He'll like sling the bass around his back, but like keep playing notes. Yeah, it's pretty annoying.
Yeah, it's rare. I know it's rare too, because like people who are like really into music or play instruments or whatever, it's rare to see a person that when you watch them, you just like kind of can't follow what they're doing all the time. Yeah. And he's the guy where like sometimes you watch him and you're just like, he's just on another plane. He's doing stuff that other people insane. Don't do.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So what's your number 3, Brian?
Okay, my number 3, one of my favorite bands, Radiohead. Their album Kid A came out in the year 2000. And Radiohead fans, like the ones that I know, everybody always says Kid A is like the best of the best. And I always make people mad. It's not their best album. Like, that's a fact. We can talk about that some other time. But it's awesome. And it's so innovative for the time. It was kind of a game changer because they were almost like an MTV band back in the day. Like their first two albums. This is their fourth album, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's their fourth. But yeah, they had like Creep. They had like the garage rock sound that sold big time. And they're like, screw this, we want to do what we want to do. And they started their experimental phase. And everything from Kid A forward feels like a new experiment. And that's why I like Radiohead so much. You never know what you're going to get. Their stuff is just so far out, but it's so pretty and it's so dark. Like it's hard to explain. It almost gives you like an eerie feeling listening to this album, a lot of the songs. But I love it. Their use of electronics is insane. Their electric guitar player, Johnny Greenwood, does stuff that I don't know how he does. He builds his own effect pedals and crap. They use a lot of loops. Put your headphones on and listen to it. There's so much like intricate details going on. It's like mind blowing. And they do so well with layers, and I love layers. And they just build songs so beautifully. And this album's just like perfect example of that. So
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned too about like the radical sounds change sort of and sending off in another direction. That can be such a polarizing thing. Like, because if there's a band that you just like love that old sound and they go somewhere new, it can be like a huge bummer. But like you said, I think with Radiohead, I think you're probably with the majority of fans as like, this is when they really took off and started doing their best stuff.
Yeah, it worked for them. I always say they're the biggest cult followed band in the world because like millions of people love them. They're like, Radiohead's the best, and then there's so many people that hate them. So it's kind of interesting. Like they'll sell out stadiums, but they have like I would consider it like a cult fan base. It's kind of weird. So yeah, but it's awesome.
That can be some of the coolest stuff to be into though, man. When the fan base feels like a cult, it's usually really fun because like when people are into it, they're into it.
Exactly. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, man.
Excellent
So that's my
choice.
Number 3.
Nice choice, man. All right, so on to number 2. No, these are the heavy hitters. All right, so top 2. Boy. So my number 2 album for the year 2000 is Beethoven's Last Night by Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Nice.
So this is like I don't have blinders on. This is very much an album for Trans-Siberian Orchestra fans. Like, if you're not already a fan of the group, this is probably not going to be the one that you pick out as like, oh wow, that's the greatest album of all time. It's not as whimsical as their Christmas stuff, and like there's not the aspect of like they're including elements of popular Christmas songs and stuff in there like they do on their Christmas albums, which I do absolutely love their Christmas albums. They're fantastic, and we'll see some of those one of those in years future as well on my top 5. But this is a really cool record. You mentioned like Radiohead can kind of give you that like eerie darkness. I think the Trans-Siberian Orchestra plays with that a little bit here. Probably not, a very different vibe, but
sure.
It's a concept album that's a totally invented story about Beethoven's last night on Earth, and he's just finished his 10th symphony, which of course there is no Beethoven's 10th symphony. And Mephistopheles comes and tells him like, hey, you can basically like trade your life for your music with me. And so the whole album, he's kind of battling with like, what is the meaning of life? Like, am I what I created? Like, what is my legacy? And Beethoven's the actual composer's music weaves its way in and out throughout the album. And there's music from some other composers as well, Mozart, Tchaikovsky. Like I said, if you're not a Trans-Siberian Orchestra fan, this one might not jump immediately to the top of your list, but I think you'd at least get a really big kick out of the instrumentals. They're fantastic. They do an instrumental version of the overture from the Marriage of Figaro, the Mozart opera that they just call Mozart, which is fantastic. They do the second movement of Beethoven's Ninth Sonata, but like really, really rocked out. They've got references to Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata that they really, really rock out and add some vocals to. So if you're into classical music like that, or some kind of like concept progressive metal, I think it can be a fun one.
Yeah, and their instrumentals are so sick. Like you said, there's no doubt about it. And they're like one of the dopest live bands ever. So I got a question for you, because I know Kyle's a huge Trans-Siberian Orchestra fan, like probably the biggest fan they have. How many times have you seen them?
I'm pretty sure it's 11 or 12.
Wow,
And
that's crazy.
I saw, I can't remember if they toured Beethoven 3 times or if they only toured it twice, but I saw the Beethoven tour twice. I saw it once in South Carolina, and once in Virginia Beach.
Nice.
Yeah, and like you said, the light shows through the roof, the musicianships through the roof. Yeah, totally awesome.
How would you compare the Christmas show to the non?
Because
I've seen the Christmas one.
It's different. The cool thing about both the Beethoven shows was, so Trans-Siberian Orchestra is so popular that when they do their Christmas tours, they split their band in half.
Right.
And they have one band that kind of tours the western half of the U.S. and one that tours the eastern half. And so the original members kind of get split up among the two. And the really cool thing about the Beethoven tour being smaller was it was the original group.
Oh yeah.
So that was pretty dang cool in that aspect. But it was a smaller scale, like a smaller light show. Still a huge performance. But the Christmas show, they just like spare no expense. They go totally all out. But yeah, who knows if they'll ever do another like spring or summer tour again. But I'd be totally down for it if they ever did.
Well, that's cool that you got to go. If they never do it again, you got to say you did it. So that's sweet.
You've been asking about, before we get to your number 2, you've been very kind to ask about when I've seen these groups live. How about you? Have you had the chance to see Linkin Park or Radiohead?
My next 2 on my list I have seen live. Radiohead is on my list, like the only band that I haven't seen that I want to see, and I regret it every day. They played in Atlanta, which is like 4-hour drive, and it was a school night. It was when I was in college, so like I couldn't. I don't know. I had some kind of big like presentation the next day, and I would have had to drive down and back same day. To get back like 3-4 in the morning, and I decided not to do it, and I regret it every day because they haven't been on tour like forever since.
Wow.
So holding out hope, though, they'll make a comeback. They came back like 3 or 4 years ago and kind of just disappeared again. So they're pretty old now.
Yeah.
Like Tom York's probably in his 50s, I bet.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so no, but yes to this one. My number 2. How do you like that transition?
That's the way to do
it. Coldplay's debut album, Parachutes, is my number 2. I'm a massive Coldplay fan, and I like a lot of indie small scale artists. A lot of people are like, who is that? Coldplay is like my big popular band that I love, and it's hard going through school loving Coldplay. So I'm glad I'm not in school anymore. But this debut album is so freaking good. Like, everybody knows Yellow, Whoop-de-doo. Like, listen to the other songs. They're so good. Like, as a debut album, like my favorite album by them is Rush Blood to the Head. That was their second one. This was like the transition into that, like you could just see the potential that they were going to have. And it's a really mellow album. Lots of really good melodies. It's really short too. I think it might be less than 40 minutes long, but it only had one big hit on it, and that was Yellow. And the other ones are kind of deep cuts, I would say. Well, I guess Trouble was a big hit, but you listen to a song like High Speed. That's a cool song. Like, the hard thing about being a Coldplay fan is people are like, oh yeah, I hate Coldplay. Viva La Vida. Like, they suck.
Yeah.
But I like their hit songs. I do. But their deeper cuts are like on another level, and nobody knows them. Nobody knows them. And it's super frustrating to me. I go and rants about it all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, have you listened to this song off of this EP that nobody knows about? I'm like, it's pretty cool, isn't it? But you know, they're a weird band because they're probably like the most hated band in the world for whatever reason. But I love them, man. And they put on such a good live show. We were talking about live shows. I saw them on their Milo Xyloto tour, which is not one of my favorite albums, but they did this cool thing where everybody got a wristband that lit up in the dark that they gave you before the show started, and the lights were in sync with like the tempos of the song.
Oh, nice.
So their whole deal was like they want people sitting far away to feel included. That was one of the best live shows I've ever been to. We were like nosebleeds, but it felt like we were like part of the show. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
That's just a side note, but Parachutes, I think it's one of the best debut albums by any band. Because usually the second album, like historically speaking, the second album is usually like a band's best album or whatever. Which is true for Coldplay, I guess. So, but this is such a strong debut, and definitely put them on the map because they blew up real fast.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. And you know, it's funny you mentioned that because like me personally, when I was in middle school and high school, I definitely went through that journey of like, I hate Coldplay.
Yeah,
because I was always, like I mentioned earlier, I was always looking for stuff that was different and kind of off the beaten path, and they were just so everywhere. And
yeah, true.
That was just kind of what made me hate them, was just that they were so popular. And Chris Martin's voice is really not my favorite. But that's not, I mean, I tend to not like guys that use the falsetto a lot. It's just not my favorite. But I totally agree with you that when you get deeper into Coldplay albums, there's some great stuff back there. Like on Parachutes, Sparks, I think is my favorite song. That's a great.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I remember, because it's kind of funny because I knew you didn't like Coldplay and I loved them, and I'd always try to like burn you CDs, like try to trick you into liking them. I'm like, check out this CD, man. I'm like, this is all the deep tracks.
And pretty much, I mean, it worked pretty much. Like I was while you were working on that, I was opening. I still use iTunes because I'm a plebeian. But I was pulling up my like what Coldplay I have in my iTunes, and I've got stuff from almost every one of their albums. I think Rush of Blood to the Head. I have about half of that one. Parachutes. I've got 4 tracks. So yeah, you wore me down, man. You got me there.
That's right. Yeah. And like the stuff before they sold out or whatever is so much better. But their last album, they kind of went back to their roots. So
nice. Yeah. That's one I actually haven't listened to yet, so I gotta check that one out.
Yeah.
I remember that was the one you said, didn't they do like a sunrise and a sunset concert or something?
Yeah, it's 2 parts. Yeah, it was really cool. But I'll talk about it way later down the line.
Oh, spoilers!
For the year 2019. Yeah, 2019. Spoilers. People will forget by then.
Oh yeah, all those thousands of listeners out there.
Yeah.
All right, so the moment has come. Everyone's been wondering for the whole pot. They've been edge of their seats.
Probably skip to this part. Yeah.
The number 1 albums from 2000. So
let's do it.
I'm not going to do this every time just because I don't have the resources, but I actually have been giving subtle hints about what my number 1 album from 2000 is. You can see right over this shoulder. It's actually a poster of the album cover. I got my Switchfoot hat on, and
let's go.
The Switchfoot Learning to Breathe by Switchfoot, my number 1 album from the year 2000. And honestly, nice. I have all this merch because this is one of my favorite albums of all time. If I was going to make a top 10 favorite albums list, this would be on there for sure.
Nice.
One of the, obviously, COVID-19 has been awful. But one of the good things that has come out of it is Switchfoot has been doing monthly live shows that they've been live streaming. And because they're not on a tour and playing for a different audience every night, they kind of know they're playing for like a lot of the hardcore fans. They've been really delving into some of their deep stuff. And they've played a couple albums all the way through. They actually covered "Yellow" by Coldplay at one of their concerts.
Oh,
Speaking
nice.
of, it's all tied together.
That's right. We're geniuses. We didn't even know.
But they performed all of "Learning to Breathe" a few months ago, and it was like, even though I wasn't there in person, it was such a cool experience just to hear one of your
Nice.
favorite albums played. They didn't play it in order, but they did some really cool stuff. They did some kind of like alternate acoustic versions of a couple of the tunes, and really gave it a very, very cool treatment. But this was the album right before they blew up. This is the album right
Right.
before, uh, gosh dang, The Beautiful Letdown.
Beautiful
This is
Letdown.
right before The Beautiful Letdown. But it actually does, the opening track on Learning to Breathe is Dare You to Move.
Mhm.
This is the album that song debuted on. And really, I mean, it's so good from top to bottom, with the first 4 tracks, especially Dare You to Move. And that goes right into the title track, Learning to Breathe. The third track is a real rocker, You Already Take Me There. And the fourth song is one of the best songs in the entire Switchfoot catalog, Love Is the Movement. Just a stellar album from top to bottom.
Yeah, it's awesome. I like I'm not as big of a Switchfoot fan as you, obviously, but I I feel like they hit their, I don't know if you'll agree with me, like you can disagree for sure, but I think they hit their stride from like Learning to Breathe through Nothing Is Sound, where there's all the back to back to back.
Yeah.
Those are probably my 3 favorites by then.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. And like the cool thing about Switchfoot, and like they're still around, they're still cranking, and like Radiohead or Coldplay, they started kind of around the same time. They've been around for a long time. And their new music is very much new. They try and do different stuff, and I really appreciate that. And I might not love every single album they've come out with over the past 6 or 7 years, but pretty much every album has, between 4 and 6 songs that I really, really like. And
Mm-hmm.
for a band to be around for 23 years, 24 years, and to still be putting out new music that you actually like, that's special. That's not a lot of groups can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Solid pick, my man.
Yeah, man. So what you got? Number one, top of the list.
Okay, number 1, top of the list. My favorite band, Eels. Woo!
Not the Eels.
Just Eels.
Just Eels.
Yeah. This album is called Daisies of the Galaxy. It's a toss-up for me. They have 13 studio albums. This one and their album Shootin' Annie are my 2 favorites, and I don't know which one's my overall favorite. But like you said, with Learning to Breathe, Daisies of the Galaxy, probably in my top 10 all time. It's so sick. It's their 3rd album. They're one of those bands, like I know everything about them. I could go on forever. But they started as an MTV band with their first album, Beautiful Freak. And their lead singer, they call him E, hated it. Just like hated being famous, hated all the commercial stuff, didn't want people to mess with his songs. So he said right early on, just like, screw you guys, I'm gonna do my own thing. Went full indie, lost like their whole following, became this crazy like cult band that nobody knows about. And they're the best, man. Days of the Galaxy is packed with hits. So he went through a really hard time in his life early on. Their second album is super dark lyrically and musically, and this one's kind of like on the upswing. So it's more like short pop songs. Kind of reminds me of like a Beatles style album. So I've got it up here. It's 15 songs and it's 43 minutes. So they're like 2 3-minute songs, just like quick little pop songs, super catchy, really cool instrumentation. Just like, I will say the A side of the album, if you want to call it, is better than the second half. But I like every song. Like every single song rules. And the first 2 are kind of like folk pop songs almost. A lot of genres on here. There's a jazz song, Daisy Through Concrete, that I love. The title track's a really soft, nice song. I Like Birds, super catchy pop song. My favorite track on the album is Fly Swatter. I know you know that one.
Yep.
Weird, cool, catchy song. Like if I would recommend looking up an Eel song, that would be the one. because that's the one that got me hooked. I was like, dang, this is cool. Like, it is cool. And the cool thing about Eels is like when they perform live, they perform their songs completely different than the studio album every single tour. It's like a thing that they do. They'll rearrange it every time. So there's my favorite band. This is one of my favorite albums. I won't talk about it too long. But yeah, finally got to see them live. They've been around since '96. I saw them live 3 years ago, and I drove all the way to Washington, D.C. to see them.
All right.
So my dreams came true. But for people who don't know who Eels are, this is a great place to start because it's probably their most approachable album, I would say, because it's a little more poppy. Because a lot of their other stuff gets kind of weird, kind of dark, but this one's got jams. Yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, I was just, while you were talking about it, I was looking at the track list because this is one that I have not listened to all the way through, but like you mentioned, I know Fly Swatter, I know I Like Birds, I know It's a Mother Effer.
Oh,
G-rated podcast, baby, G-rated podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we might have gotten up to PG just by mentioning that song. I don't know. But I'll definitely have to give this one a closer listen because like you mentioned, Fly Swatter is definitely one of my top 3 favorite Eels songs. So
yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
And here's a fun fact about this album. The last song, Mr. E's Beautiful Blues, is a hidden track. They wanted to force him to put a single on the album for radio play, and he didn't want a single on the album. So I'm getting this from his book, so it's accurate. So he said, no, I don't want it. He's like, I don't want it on the album. He's like, I don't freaking want it. He's like, I don't want a single. It's terrible. They're like, no, you have to have it. We're not going to put out the album, kind of thing. So he agreed to put it on as a hidden track. And the day before they sent the album out to be released, he added more space in between the last song and the hidden track because he wanted people to turn it off when it was supposed to end. And then here's the funniest part. The song is just loaded with GD bombs. The chorus goes, GD, right? It's a beautiful day. So they couldn't even play it on the radio anyway. So it's pretty classic.
That's awesome.
But I'll plug his book too, because this is an indie guy that I love. Like, he had a crazy life. It's like way too much to explain. But his book, it's called Things the Grandchildren Should Know. One of the best like autobiographies by a band I've ever read. He just had a really interesting life. So Eels, plug in for my boy E.
Yeah, yeah. I know you told me a lot about that book. He seems like a real stand-up dude.
Yeah.
Been through some tough stuff.
Briefly, it's basically his whole family died when he was like young. Like his sister committed suicide. His dad died from drinking too much alcohol, and his mom had cancer, and they all died like within 2 years of each other. So he kind of grew up by himself. Really interesting story though. Yeah. Sorry.
That's a good,
make it sad.
I was gonna say it's a good somber way to end our very first podcast. So just to recap, in case you're keeping score at home or wanting to listen to these things, like Brian and I said, supporting these artists is always so important. Even the ones that may or may not be active anymore, since these have been around for 20 plus years at this point. But Brian's top 5, we had Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, Loud and Clear by the Orange County Supertones, Kid A by Radiohead, Parachutes by Coldplay, and Daisies of the Galaxy by Eels.
Woo.
And my top 5, we had Invincible by Skillet, Loud and Clear by the OC Supertones, Outbound by Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, Beethoven's Last Night by Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and Learning to Breathe by Switchfoot. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you had as much fun listening to this as we've had making it. It's something that came together very quickly. And I'm sure Brian's going to have tons and tons of time to record the next one's rapid fire with his new baby on the way. He'll have nothing else to do.
That was super fun, man.
It really was. Yeah. It was. And I think it was enjoyable. I think we gave nice tidbits and stories.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a huge hit.
certainly no worse than some other podcasts that you can find out there.
I'll be looking in the trending section after this one drops.
So just a little plug for next time. So next time we will obviously cover the year 2001. And just as a little tidbit hint to get excited for, it is the only year that Brian and I share the #1 album.
Ooh.
Yeah, this year we shared the #4. Next year we shared the #1, and then I think that's it for a while. I don't think we have much crossover after that. And if you're a North Carolina person, because we're a North Carolina group, our #1 artist is North Carolina Guy. So,
nice hint.
Yeah, get excited. You can do a little research there, find out who it is. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to some stories and some great music from the year 2000. Come back next time for 2001. Brian?
All right. See you guys.
Talk to you soon, man. You'll have a baby next time we'll see you.
Yeah, man. Hopefully it doesn't cry through the whole thing. We'll see how it goes.
We gave people the heads up this time, so if they don't want to listen, that's on them.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Signing off, man. Good show.
Yep.